Hey guys, what's going on? It's Phil here from TechSmart, and today we're doing a massive unboxing, review, and comparison of the brand new Tab 4 family. So that's going to consist of these Tab 4 7-inch, 8-inch, as well as the 10.1. Now, before we continue, go ahead and click that 4K option because this video is going to be filmed and edited in full 4K. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and see what we're going to get in the box. So starting off with the Tab 4 7-inch, on the front of the box you have a picture of the tablet itself. Flip the box over and you're going to get some logos and specifications. Popping the top, you're greeted with the Tab 4 7, and underneath that you're going to get the micro USB charging cable, AC power brick, as well as your info guides, warranty information, and all that good stuff that you're probably never going to read. Looking at the Tab 4 8-inch, it's almost identical. On the front of the box, you have a picture of the tablet itself. Flipping the box over, you have the logos and specs. Popping the top, you're greeted with the tablet. You have the micro USB charging cable, AC power brick, as well as those info booklets. Looking over to the largest box, we have the Tab 4 10.1. Front of the box, you're going to have the tablet. Back of the box, you're going to have the logos and specs. Popping the top, we're greeted with the enormous Tab 4 10.1. And then underneath that, you're going to get the micro USB charging cable, AC power brick, as well as your info and warranty information. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the review portion of this video. Let's kick it off with some hardware. Now we're going to look at the Tab 4 7-inch first. So you are greeted with a 7-inch 800 by 1280 resolution display. That's going to pack a pixels per inch count of 216. Now the tablet itself is pretty light. It feels really solid in the hand. It's just 0.35 inches thick, and it weighs just 9.74 ounces, so it's definitely going to be compact, and it should be a little bit lighter than last year's model. On the front of the tablet, you have the Samsung logo right up top next to the front-facing camera. You have a capacitive multitask and back button, which is new, as well as a physical home button, and now Samsung has included this faux aluminum trim, and it definitely looks pretty nice. I kind of enjoy it. On the right side of the tablet, you have the sleep wake button, volume rocker, IR blaster, as well as a micro SD card slot, thank God. On the top of the tablet, you have the 3.5mm headphone jack. Along the bottom, you have the micro USB charging port. And flipping the tablet over, you have a faux leather back material, very similar to what we saw on the Galaxy Note 3, not necessarily following suit with the Galaxy S5's perforated backing, but nice nonetheless. It's a nice step away from Samsung's typical plastic, and we can all enjoy that. You're also going to have a 3-megapixel rear-facing camera, Samsung logo, and a single speaker. Yeah. Continuing with the specs, we have a 1.2 GHz quad-core processor, 1.5 GB of RAM, 8 GB of storage. However, there is a 16 GB option available, Bluetooth 4.0, as well as Android 4.4 with Samsung's custom overlay. Switching gears, let's look at the Tab 4 8.0. So you're going to have an 8-inch display with a resolution of 800 by 1280. Same resolution as the 7-inch, which is going to leave you with a pixels per inch count of 189. It's pretty thin as well, coming in at 0.31 inches thick, and it weighs just 11.29 ounces. So again, following suit, is very lightweight and is very portable. On the front of the device, you have the Samsung logo, 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera, capacitive multitask button, as well as a capacitive back button. Centered right in there is going to be your physical home button, and you have that aluminum trim as well, which again looks very nice. On the right side of the device, you have the sleep wake button, volume rocker, IR blaster, and micro SD card slot. It's good to see they've included that on all three models this year. On the top, you have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Along the bottom, you have your micro USB charging port. Flip the device over, you're greeted with that same faux leather backing. We do have the black models here, and I think it looks really nice on them. You have a 3-megapixel rear-facing camera, Samsung logo, and just one speaker as well. Rounding out the specs, they are identical, and we're going to see a 1.2 GHz quad-core processor, 1.5 GB of RAM, 16 GB of storage is what this device is going to start off at, Bluetooth 4.0, Android 4.4 KitKat, as well as a 4,450 mAh battery. So let's look at the largest tablet of the three, the Tab 4 10.1. So it rocks a 10.1 inch display, and unfortunately it's the same resolution, 1280 by 800, which is going to leave it with a 149 pixels per inch count. It's 0.31 inches thin, as well as it's only 17.18 grams, so it's definitely very light. On the front, you have a Samsung logo. You have the front-facing camera, capacitive multitask, and back button, physical home button, and that aluminum trim as well. The entire device is actually in landscape orientation, so again, it looks very nice and obviously geared toward looking at media. On the right side of the device, you have a speaker, one of the two on this. On the top, you have a sleep-wake button, volume rocker, micro SD card slot, IR blaster. Along the left, you have a 3.5mm jack, as well as your second speaker, thank you. On the bottom, you have a micro USB charging port. And flipping the device over, again, you're going to have that faux leather backing, a 3-megapixel camera, Samsung logo. And continuing out with the specs, again, it's a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor, 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, Adreno 305 graphics, 16 gigabytes of storage, Bluetooth 4.0, Android 4.4 KitKat, as well as a 6800 mAh battery. So now that we have the hardware out of the way, let's look at the software on these devices. Now for this category, I've kind of just mashed all the tablets together because they have the same specs, and really the software experience is going to be very similar amongst all the devices. So they are all running Android 4.4 KitKat with Samsung's custom overlay. Now, the devices can be really quick. They have their moments. However, at the same time, they do kind of tend to lag every once in a while. It's kind of understandable. They're very much budget tablets for the price range that they're competing at. But overall, I mean, they're definitely very quick. The home screen is very simple. It's not really overloaded with Samsung's crap, and that's really nice to see because Samsung can overdo it at times. You have a couple preloaded applications like Samsung's Memo, which is really just kind of like your Google Tasks, Dropbox, Handcom Viewer, which is a document viewer. You have Netflix as well as Watch On, and Watch On is really great. We've really just seen this on every Samsung device now. It's used to control the IR blaster, and it works very well. You can also control like a DVR or a set-top box, and it's probably one of the best features on this tablet, to be honest. Now, you also have very minimal bloatware, and this is really great. You don't have a lot of that Samsung everything thrown at you, so it's a relatively stock interface that you're going to be dealing with. Now, Samsung has customized the multitask menu, and I can appreciate it. It looks clean, it sits along the bottom, it's not vertical, and I actually kind of like it. And I don't know, I wouldn't really be opposed to if Android switched to this one. You're going to have the multi-window feature, which we've seen on a lot of devices. Basically, the way you access it is you can either long press on the back button or you can swipe in from the right bezel on the device. And basically, you're going to be greeted with a list of applications. From those, you can choose two to display side by side for the ultimate multitasking experience. I really did enjoy it, but with just 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, be careful as to what two programs you have running, because you can definitely slow the tablet down pretty quickly. So, following suit with Samsung keeping this pretty simple as far as their overlay, you're not going to get AirView or a lot of those Samsung gimmicky features. Now, some people aren't going to like this. I personally enjoy it. Basically, it just frees up system memory. You're not really having all of these things running in the background that are taking away from battery life. And it's nice. It definitely feels like a very clean, simple tablet. Now, Samsung has opted to include multi-user mode, and that's awesome because Samsung is definitely gearing these tablets towards the family. More importantly, kind of like the mid-range, mid-income family, I should say. So if just say you wanted one tablet for the house, leave it in the living room, and you can have multiple accounts on it. So husband, wife, kids, whatever, you can have different profiles set up for each person. They've also opted for this feature for restricted profiles, which allows you to restrict applications, internet usage, and all of that jazz, so that if you have a kid using the tablet, you know that they're not getting into anything you don't want them to. So just overall, the software is really nice. I definitely like that Samsung didn't take too much charge with this one, and they've definitely just made a nice software experience, and I can definitely live with it. The minor lagging and crashing applications every once in a while is annoying, but for the price tag, it's definitely something I can easily overcome. So let's take a look at the display. So the Tab 4 7-inch offers a 7-inch display with a resolution of 1280 by 800. The display is very vibrant, and the pixels per inch count is definitely tolerable. It's rated in at 216 pixels per inch, and for the size, I could definitely live with it. Viewing angles were very nice. If you're consuming any sort of media, you're really not going to have any problems or anything that you're not going to like about it. Looking at the Tab 4 8-inch, it's decent as well. It's slightly larger than the 7-inch, although I couldn't really notice a difference. Even though the pixels per inch count was slightly less, I really didn't notice much of a difference either. I mean, going from 7 inches to 8 inches, it really is kind of like a blur. You're not really going to see which one. I kind of sometimes forgot which tablet I was using. However, looking at the Tab 4 10.1, this was like the worst of the three. To be honest, it had a very, very low pixels per inch count. It was rated in at 149, which really in today's standards is definitely not acceptable. I'm really not one to pick at pixels, but it was just bad. Text looked blurred, and reading was just not enjoyable. And there's really no reason on earth why Samsung couldn't bump up the resolution, at least for the 10.1-inch tablet. I don't know if you noticed, but all three tablets have the same exact resolution. And I don't know, that's just not really acceptable in this day of age. We're really in a very pixel-dense market. We have high PPIs everywhere, so there's really no reason why somebody should have to suffer, especially when a 10-inch tablet should be doing stuff like being able to read websites. It just looks fuzzy, it looks blurry, it made me thinking I needed glasses, and I have pretty decent vision. However, to give it a little bit of positive, movies looked fine, pictures looked fine. It was really just text that kind of offset everything. So battery life is pretty good on the three tablets. We are going to break it down separately just because they all have different milliamp hour ratings on the batteries. So looking at the Tab 7-inch, it has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and it's pretty solid. It's rated at 10 hours of internet use. With my usage, I was able to get around 2 days of light use. If I was using it a little bit during the day, you can leave it on overnight or shut it off and you'll be good to go for the next day as well. However, once you really get into the heavier use, you're going to be looking at around 7 to 8 hours before the tablet is going to need to recharge. Looking at the Tab 8, it has a 4,450 milliamp hour battery. Again, it's pretty solid. It's rated at 12 hours of internet use. I got pretty similar battery life on the Tab 7, around 2 days of easy, pretty light use, and around 9 to 10 hours of heavy, hardcore use. Looking at the Tab 10.1, it has a 6,800 milliamp hour battery. It's rated at 10 hours of minimal use, and for some reason, I really kind of got the worst battery life out of this one. It was looking at around 7 hours of heavy use, and if I tried to split it up amongst 2 days, I really couldn't get through a full second day on light use. I'd get about a day's and a half worth of use. But then again, it is the largest display, so you kind of have to take that into consideration. And when I was using it, I tend to be using more so movies. So let's take a look at the cameras, and these are really nothing to talk about. Be totally honest, it's a 3 megapixel camera on all three devices, no flash, no autofocus. The one major benefit is that Samsung did include some different camera modes, so you have stuff like auto, night, sport, and panorama, which is pretty cool that they added that, but I don't really know if it's necessary. I don't really have a problem with people using tablets to take photos, that's great, whatever. This camera was just definitely slapped on the tablet for some reason. The camera in the front is decent. It's 1.3 megapixels. You're not really going to use it for anything other than a cheap selfie or if you're on Skype, which is definitely going to handle well. But regardless, with either camera, if you're not in any sort of perfect light situation, good luck. So overall, the Tab 4 7-inch comes in a couple different variants. So it starts off at $199 for the 8GB variant. However, you can go up to $239.99 for a 16GB model, and the tablet comes in black or white. The Tab 4 8-inch starts at $239.99 for a 16GB model, and that's going to come in black or white as well. And the Tab 4 10.1 comes in at $319.99 in black or white as well. So just kind of wrapping everything up, if you're looking for a tablet with a smaller form factor, without a doubt, go for the Tab 4 7-inch and the 8GB model at that. The reason why I say the 7-inch over the 8-inch model is you're going to get a higher pixels per inch count, just going to make the display look a lot nicer, and as I said, I really couldn't distinguish much of a difference between the 7-inch tablet and the 8-inch tablet. So with that, there's really no reason why I would go for a more expensive model just to get a kind of worse screen in my opinion. Also, if you're going with the 8GB model, you can literally buy an 8GB micro SD card for like $6 and make it a 16GB model. So, what is that? $206, and you just saved yourself $34 right there. So, smaller form factor, go for the Tab 4 7-inch. If you need a larger tablet, Tab 10.1, at the same time though, low screen resolution, and it's 320. You could probably go find yourself like a Nexus 10, and you're going to be better off with that, and it's super high resolution. You may have to buy it used, but at the same time, you're probably going to get a much better experience out of it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to click that thumbs up button. Let us know in the comments below which tablet you would be considering getting, if you're getting any of these at all. We'd really like to know, and we're going to be responding to as many as we can before the comments kind of fill up. Anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter. All the links are going to be in the description below. See you guys next time. Later. Later. Later.
Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the new Samsung Galaxy Tab 4 7-inch, which is now thinner, lighter, more compact, with better specs than the Tab 3 from last year. This is also joined by a new 8.0 and 10.1 Tab 4. Now I'm looking at the Wi-Fi only version, white, but you can get this in black with a cellular version. So there's a cellular version that adds either 3G or LTE, and it adds GSM voice, so you could get one with an earpiece and use it as a handset. Now in terms of specs, we have a 7-inch display WXGA resolution, which is 1280 by 800. That's a big improvement over the 1080 by 600 display from last year. So this is good for 216 pixels per inch. Now all the Tab 4s have the same screen resolution, so the smaller you go, the higher the pixel density. We also have a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core processor. That's an improvement over the dual-core from last year, which was also clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. Now we have the same camera specs, 3 megapixel fixed focus camera, which is good for 720p HD video. Then we have a 1.3 megapixel front camera. We also have GPS and GLONASS built in. Now in terms of Wi-Fi, this supports Wi-Fi up to 802.11n. And we have a 4000 milliamp hour battery. And we have 1.5 gigs of RAM. Again, an improvement over the 1 gig of RAM from last year. And we're running Android 4.4.2, a big improvement over 4.1, which the Tab 3 7-inch was stuck at last year. This also gets a new and improved version of TouchWiz, which brings it up to the design spec of the Galaxy S5. Alright, so let's just pop the box, slide it out. There we go, Galaxy Tab 4. So as you can see here, we also have multi-user mode and multi-window mode, which I'll explore in this video. Let's go ahead and pop this out of its tray here. There we go. Got a little plastic back panel, which is kind of stuck to the tray. Alright, so let's go ahead and peel off the front plastic. There you go. You have your 7-inch screen, which is now more edge-to-edge than before. You have much less bezel than the Tab 3 from last year. So it's a lot more compact. Now before we take a close look at the tablet, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the accessories they've included here. So we have a USB 2.0 cable, micro USB 2.0, so no 3.0 in this case. We also have our wall adapter, Samsung branded, which has a nice matte finish just like the tablet itself, no longer that glossy finish. Now we have our paperwork, which includes a quick start guide. We also have an incentive to register your Galaxy device with Samsung. We have instructions on how to upgrade the software, and then we have a very large book for health, safety, and warranty information, which is in multiple languages. Now before we take a close look at the hardware design, let's go ahead and boot this up. Just going to press and hold the power button, which is placed just above the volume button on the right-hand side. Alright, so let's go and take a look at the design of our tablet. As you can see, it can be used in landscape or portrait orientation. It does seem to be designed primarily for landscape orientation because that is where the IR blaster is located. But as you can see, it's now a much more one-handable tablet because they've shrunken down the bezels considerably. The design is now catching up with Samsung's other higher-end tablets like the Tab Pros. So you can see it's got a nice form factor overall. The display looks pretty bright and vivid, nice and colorful. Certainly not as vibrant as the OLED display on the GS5, and we'll talk more about the display a bit later. Now toward the bottom you have our new Android controls here. So these pretty much catch up with the Tab Pros as well as the Galaxy S5. So we have a recent apps button as opposed to a menu button like we did with the Tab 3. We have our home button and back button, and as you can see here, they are not backlit like they are on the higher end tablets. Up top, it's pretty simple. Just a 1.3 megapixel front-facing VGA camera, so a fairly mediocre camera. Again, there is no ambient light sensor, and there is also no LED notification light. Now, as you can see here, the glass is surrounded by a plastic bezel with that chrome finish. Now, if you look at the edges, you can see that the back panel pretty much wraps around the edge to give you more of a unibody feel to it. It's a simpler design, feels a little more robust, doesn't look as elegant maybe as the one with the faux stitching like you get with the Tab or the 10.1 7.1 2014 edition or the Note 3. It's a much simpler design, but you also have that sort of leather finish with that grain to it, which gives you a nice grippable texture. It's not as slippery feeling as the glossy texture, and maybe a little more durable than the glossy finish. So you can see down here we have a micro USB 2.0 port. Doesn't have USB 3.0 like the other higher end Samsung tablets. We also have a speaker grill. This is just a mono speaker. You can see it's pretty tiny. There is a bump out here to prevent you from muffling the speaker when you lay it flat on the table. Now up top we have our camera module, which is pretty basic. This is a 3.15 megapixel camera module with a fixed focus lens, so no autofocusing here, and of course there is no LED light. It does record video at 720p at 30 frames per second. Now along the right hand edge or the top side of the tablet in landscape orientation, you'll find a microphone, your sleep wake button, as well as our volume rocker, which are plastic and color matched to the body. We also have our IR LED blaster for controlling AV equipment, and they do give you an included app, the Watch On app for controlling those devices. And then we have a micro SD card slot, which is hidden behind this door. This supports only 32 gig cards, while the other Tab 4s support 64 gig cards. Now along the top side, we have this little bump out for the headphone jack, and as you can see here, the camera module is fairly flush to the back. Alright, so let's take a look at the user interface. This is Android 4.4 with an updated version of TouchWiz. As you can see, we have that unlock effect we've seen with the GS5. Now, the interface is pretty familiar here. This is very similar to the Tab Pros I reviewed previously. So you can pinch in and out to see all of your home screens. You can select which one you want to be your home screen. You can add new home screens, and you can rearrange them. Now, what you don't have here is the My Magazine feature we get with the Tab Pros, which I also reviewed previously. So this is a much simpler tablet. It's kind of bare bones in terms of its features. So we have our drop-down notification shade. As you can see up here, we have our quick access toggles, which we can move through just by swiping left and right. So we have our brightness slider, which does not include auto because we don't have an ambient light sensor. We also have our volume control right there. We have our notifications down here, which are expandable if they do apply here. And you can tap on them to launch the app that pushed the notification. Now you can also go up here to jump to all your toggles as opposed to sliding between them, and you can go up here to edit them. So you can edit exactly what appears in your notification panel, and you can see that everything is included except airplane mode. So for example, you can't drag and drop it up here because you're limited to a certain number of them, and you have to remove one of them in order to add another one. But of course, you can also rearrange them and that sort of thing. And you can also reset it back to default. Now, as you can see down here, you can also tap any one of these icons so you get right to the page you want, or you can use this little slider gesture. Now, if you tap and hold, you can get to your home screen editor. So this allows you to set your wallpapers, add apps and widgets, create folders, or add new pages. So for example, if we go to apps and widgets, it just takes you to your app drawer, which also includes your widgets. You can also go to your downloaded apps. So you can see I've just downloaded Twitter just recently, and we're going to talk more about the app drawer in just a minute. You can also tap and hold here to create a folder. So if we go to create a folder, let's go ahead and test one. So you just create a folder, name it, you can reposition it, and you can add apps to it. Let me go here. So you can see you can move it around to other home screens. In fact, when you bring up the editor, you can see you have your home screen previews down here. So you can drag and drop to any home screen you prefer, like so. And we can drag and drop apps to it either from the home screen or from the app drawer. So let's go to apps here. You can drag and drop my files here, like so, and move it around. Now, if you're done with that, you can take it up here and remove it. So if you don't want to have that, you can also tap and hold here to add another page. Now, if you tap and hold one of the apps on the home screen, you get to the option to create a new folder, go to app information, or remove the app. You can't uninstall it from the home screen. You have to do that from the app drawer. If you go up to app info, brings you to the settings panel, which shows you a lot about this app. You can turn off notifications, you can force stop it, that sort of thing. So all of that is here. Now, if we go to the app drawer, you see we have the standard array of Samsung apps. So we see S-Voice, Samsung's App Store, we have the Memo app, email, calendaring. We also have My Files. We have the onboard music and video player, the world clock and calculator. And we have Google's voice search. We have Google's Gmail, Google Plus, Play Music, Play Movies and TV, Play Books, Newsstand, Games. We also have Hangouts. We have Chrome. Photos, which is our photo gallery, which allows us to sync our photos to our Google account. We have the Google Maps app, of course, YouTube, the Play Store, Google Drive, Google Settings. We have the third-party app, Dropbox, as well as HandCom Viewer, which allows us to view Office documents such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So if those documents were created in those programs, you can use this app to open them and edit them. So this is very nice to have, especially on a tablet. And we also have the Watch On app, which again allows us to control our AV equipment just by selecting our service provider and adding our gadget. So let's go ahead and get started here. I've already input the fact that my service provider is Comcast in my region, and I can go ahead and add a device here. So I haven't added my TV yet, so I have my Samsung Smart TV. Click Next. So as you can see, I have two tabs right now, On TV and On Demand. So On TV is basically my live program that's available right now. So for example, if I want to watch The Internship, you can see it's broadcasting right now. I can click Watch on TV. It will change the channel to that, or change the TV to that channel, and I can start watching it right now. Now the app drawer has a lot of new settings here. So we have Edit. This allows us to create new folders or uninstall apps or hide apps. So for example, if I tap and hold this Twitter app, I have the option to uninstall the app, go to app information, create a new page for the app, or create a folder. So if I go to create a folder, you can see it will create a folder for me right in the app drawer. Now it does create a new page in the app drawer just for foldered items. So if I click save, there we go. I can now drag and drop this folder to my home screen if I prefer as well, or I can just cancel that. Now I can't just drag and drop items between my app drawer pages. I actually have to go up to edit in order to change that. So let's go again up here to edit, and now I can start dragging and dropping items to that folder. Alternatively, I can go right to the folder. I can go to plus to add the apps, but there you go. I can basically just check the apps I want to add to the app folder. So for example, like these, I can do and click done, and it's added them to that folder. Now, if I go up here to edit, I can also uninstall or disable apps again just by checking certain ones I want to uninstall. Now, some of them cannot be uninstalled. So as you can see here, the Watch On app is included. It can't be removed, as well as the standard or the integrated Samsung apps, such as the Calendar app and Gallery app and Camera app. You can't uninstall those. But you can see the World Clock can be removed. In this case, you have to disable that app. But if I go up to that Twitter app, which I added myself or downloaded right here, I have the option to uninstall it, but a lot of these apps cannot be uninstalled. Now, in terms of our recent apps tree, you can launch any one of them just by tapping on them. You can also swipe them out of the way to close them, or you can close all, or you can go to your task manager to get to more settings. This takes you to the settings panel for active applications, downloaded apps, RAM manager, so you can see how much RAM is being used, as well as storage. Because this used to be a menu button, we can now tap and hold on that button to get to menu. Now, when you're in the home screen, it just takes you to the home screen editor. But if you're in an app such as Chrome right here, let's tap and hold that again. There you go. It takes you to your menu settings. Now, the home button has a few functions here. So the home button, if you press it once, takes you to the home screen. If you double press it, it takes you to S Voice. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
Clouds, thunder, and rain are all forecast for Wednesday.
Open the YouTube app.
Open YouTube.
Now, if you want to get to Google now, just tap and hold the home button. Okay, Google. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
Tomorrow's forecast for Rochester Hills is 57 degrees with a chance of storm.
Okay, Google. Open the YouTube app.
Opening app.
Now, if you tap and hold the back button, it brings up our multi-window mode. Now, if you tap and hold the power button, it gets you to power off, airplane mode, or restart. You can also mute it. As you can see here, there is no vibration motor to enable. Now, with volume, just tap the volume button. You can click here to get to more volume controls. You can adjust notification volume, media, and system volume independently. Now let's get back to our quick settings toggle. So as you can see here, this reveals some of the available features. Now there's not a lot going on here. So you can see we have Wi-Fi, location services, our audio controls, screen rotation lock, Bluetooth, multi-windowing mode, which we'll explore, syncing, smart stay, power saving mode, blocking mode, and airplane mode. Now you can quickly access any one of these features just by tapping and holding on them. It takes you right to the control panel. And I think we're all pretty familiar with smart stay. Basically, it uses the camera to monitor the presence of your eyes. So it knows if you're looking at the display or not. It will allow the display to go to sleep if you're not looking at it and will prevent it from going to sleep if you are. It's fairly reliable if you have good lighting, but otherwise it's a feature I prefer to turn off just because it's a little too unpredictable. We also have power saving mode, so if you enable this, it basically dials back performance of both the screen and processing power. And if you want more controls here, just go to that setting panel here. So you can dial back CPU performance as well as shorten the screen timeout, and it will also dim the display. Now we also have blocking mode, which is a do not disturb feature, which you can just enable, so it stops you from receiving notifications unless they're important. So for example, if I toggle it on, I can select always, so we'll turn off notifications or turn off alarms or both. You just have to select which ones you want, or you can select specific times of day. So if you want this to turn off when you go to bed at night, so for example, let's go with 12 a.m. set. Click set, and you're good. Now you can also quickly access your settings panel right from the drop-down notification shade. So as you can see, we have this tabbed viewer for connections, device, controls, general, and you can search. So if you don't want to dig through the menus, you can just search. So for example, if I want to change my wallpaper, let's see if I can just search for it. There we go, wallpaper, including the icon for wallpapers. Takes you right to that point in the control panel, and you can select your home screen, lock screen, or home and lock screens. I find this very useful. So under connections, we have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, which you can toggle on and off, airplane mode, data usage, location services, so you can see which apps are reporting your location or using your location, more networks, and of course you can toggle this off. You can see your VPN settings or your printing settings, so you can go right to your printers right there. So this, of course, is Android 4.4, so you do have integrated printing, which is very nice. We have nearby devices, so we can see all devices that are sharing a network, so that would include DLNA equipped devices, and you can also share this device on that network, so other devices can have access to this device's media content. Now under device, we have our sound control. So for example, we can disable the touch sound effects, which are on by default. So if you don't like that constant blooping sound or that nature UX sound that Samsung seems to put everywhere still, you also have display settings. So we can change our brightness, the screen timeout settings. We can enable the daydream feature for screensaver mode. You can also disable the show battery percentage, but that's on by default. We have our multi-window mode, which you can turn on and off. Now I'll show you multi-window mode later. Now we have lock screen settings here. Now the lock screen, you can turn on something called shortcuts. And if you tap on the shortcut icon here, you can actually edit what those shortcuts are. So for example, these are the default ones. I can add a new one here. So for example, if I like Chrome, and I can also remove one just by tapping and holding on it and deleting it. So for example, if I don't want the WebKit browser, I can remove it and I can continue adding another app which I find useful, such as Gmail. So now when I go to my lock screen, I now have quick access to apps I tend to use a lot, such as the camera app. And I can also swipe on any one of them to launch directly into that app. Now we can also jump to our wallpapers. Again, we can select home screen, lock screen, or home and lock screen. We have our font settings. We can change our font style as well as our font sizes. We have notification panel settings, which I showed you earlier. Also under notification, you can disable the brightness and volume controls if you don't want those to appear there. We have accessibility settings, lots and lots of settings here. We have our blocking mode settings as well. Under controls, we have our language and input settings, so you can change your keyboard. So if you want to add your own Google keyboard, as I prefer, as opposed to the Samsung keyboard, you can do so here, or you can manage that here. We have our palm motion features. Now with the screen capture feature, you just swipe the edge of your palm against the screen and it does a little screen grab. And in fact, it does pop up for you in the notification panel. You can click right on it to get to it. You can open it up in whatever app you prefer. Now we also have mute pause. So if you want to mute media, all you have to do is put your hand over the screen and it mutes it for you. Now under general, we have our accounts here, so we can add new email accounts, new Gmail accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LDAP, etc. We have our cloud accounts, which include Samsung, as well as our Dropbox account, backup and reset settings, date and time, accessory settings, application manager, so we can see all of our running apps, downloaded apps, apps on the SD card. We also have our default application settings, which you can modify. Battery, so we can see our battery percentage, we can see our battery usage data. We have our power saving mode, which you can toggle on and off. Storage, so you can see what's taking up all your storage. You can see there's not a lot of storage left, and I haven't installed much. We have security settings, and we have about device. Now in terms of the multi-window mode, if you have it enabled, all you have to do to access it is swipe in from the right edge of the tablet. This works in landscape or portrait orientation. You can see all the apps that support multi-windowing, which is most of them. So for example, you can launch YouTube. You just drag and drop it to the screen. It launches the app. Now you can launch another app side by side. So for example, if you want our Chrome browser, hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Board with a look at two devices.
So I can play back one of my videos in full screen on the left-hand side and continue watching my video while searching the web. So I can go ahead and go to The Verge. Brings up a text box that floats and moves around. So again, let me bring that here. So I can move that around here so I can keep it out of the way. So there we go. I can pinch and zoom while watching video on the left-hand side. Now I can resize the window like so. So if you want to see your video a bit larger, you can do it that way. You can also tap on the circle to get to settings. So you can switch the sides here,
like so. So switch from left hand to right hand side. And again, same story here. You can also copy one item from one window to the other window using this utility. And you also have the option to just close one of the windows, like so. Now, of course, if you want to close this window, the controls have to be on this side. If I want to close this window, the controls have to be on that side. So basically what I have to do here is make sure that the window is active here. So you can see this window is surrounded in blue. Now when I tap the blue icon, it's now giving me controls for that window. So again, same story here. Tap that there. Now, if you look at the bottom of that multi-window tray, you have several options here. So you can go to Edit. This allows you to edit what apps appear here. So as you can see, they don't include all the apps, but you can add as many as you want, or you can remove as many as you want. So you just tap and hold it, drag and drop it like so. Now, I'm just going to use the included Memo app to show off the Samsung keyboard, but the Memo app is pretty decent here. So you can see we can record a voice memo. This is a test of the voice recording memo feature. So you can stop it, you can pause it to resume it, and click play to play it back.
This is a test of the voice recording memo feature.
And you can delete it if you want. You can also add images either from the camera or your image gallery and that sort of thing. So let's get to that keyboard. So the keyboard is pretty familiar again. So you can see we have a full QWERTY keyboard with a directional D-pad here, which is shrunken down for the 7-inch tablet. You get larger keys with a larger tablet. So you have your number keys up here. You can go to your settings down here. Takes you to your settings for the keyboard. If you tap and hold on it, it gets you quick access to the voice keyboard, the text input keyboard, the copy and paste function, as well as different keyboard sizes. So if you want to change your keyboard from the floating keyboard to the QWERTY keyboard, you can do that as well. Notice there is no split keyboard like you get with the larger tablet. Now there is a swipe keyboard in here, but you have to go to settings to activate it. So let's go right here to continuous input. If you click that, bring up our keyboard here. You can see it works pretty well. And of course we have our voice keyboard. This is a test of the voice keyboard, which is provided by Google, period. Now, as I said, we also have handwriting recognition built in here. So all we have to do is start writing. We can use our finger or stylus if we prefer. You can see it's not perfect. You can click back here. It recognizes letters as well as punctuation. Now overall, I'm pretty impressed by this display. It's not a terribly bright display, but that pixel density is pretty decent. At 216 ppi, it's not going to challenge something like the iPad mini with Retina display or even the Nexus 7, but it's fairly decent, especially at this price point. So it's perfect for e-reading. So if you do a lot of reading with this tablet, you want sharp text, so it's not as fatiguing on the eye. And I think this tablet definitely pulls it off well. Now let's take a look at the camera app. Again, a pretty mediocre camera, 3.2 megapixels, good for 720p video. Does not have autofocusing, but you can pinch in and out to zoom, which is just digital cropping. Now you have your photo mode. You can take a photo. You can also select your mode here from the variety of options such as night mode, sports shot, panorama, sound and shot, beauty face, and auto. Now you can go to settings down here. It gets you to all your settings, not a lot here. So we have our photo size. You can see 3.2 is maximum. We have our video settings. You can see 720p is the only option. And then we have other settings such as location tags. You can select the volume key to operate as the zoom key. You have your timer options, white balance, brightness, guidelines, contextual file naming, and the same thing for the still camera. So we also have our metering settings, which you can change from center weighted to matrix or spot metering. Now, because we do not have autofocus, we do not have tap to focus here. Now we can jump here to get to our settings, like so. We can also drag out this little drawer here to get to some of our quick settings, such as our exposure levels, which we can modify manually, like so. You can also tap and hold on one of these icons and rearrange them if you prefer. Now, of course, we also have filters, not a lot of them. So we have negative, sepia, grayscale, or no effect. There you go. So I actually just have 3 filters. I can also quickly switch between the rear-facing and front-facing camera, like so. And then you can also activate the video camera mode by swiping that little toggle here. Get you to video camera. And again, you can start recording video. Now, you can't shoot photos while recording video like you can with Samsung's more powerful hardware. You can click pause. You can resume recording or stop it. Now in terms of our Geekbench scores, you can see the Nexus 7 definitely blows away the Tab 4. And that's thanks to a more powerful quad-core processor clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. Also has 2 gigs of RAM versus 1.5 gigs on the Tab 4. Alright guys, so let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the Tab 4 as I see it. So the Tab 4 7-inch model starts off at $199, which is pretty affordable. Although the Nexus 7 isn't too far behind it at $229, which gives you higher end processing power, a higher resolution display, and better cameras. But pricing tends to drop a lot on the Tab 4. You can pick these up pretty cheaply when they go on sale, and they're very popular worldwide and readily available. Now, this is also running the latest version of Android 4.4.2 with an updated version of TouchWiz, which isn't too bloated this time. They've kind of stripped it down to only the really useful features. It's also fairly compact, lightweight, and portable, making it one of the most compact 7-inch tablets out there. Now, in terms of weaknesses, the biggest one is performance, especially when you're running TouchWiz. Now, it doesn't have terrible internal specs, but it doesn't have the specs it needs to really keep up with the demands of TouchWiz. So while they've stripped down TouchWiz, it's still there. It's not as optimized as the stock experience on the Nexus 7, which flies on the Nexus 7 tablet. So you can definitely notice the speed difference when using the Nexus 7 versus the Tab 4. Now, the display is also kind of dim, so it's not great outdoors. It has a fairly mediocre camera and has a really small, tinny, rear-facing speaker, which isn't as good as the stereo speaker on the Nexus 7 or on the stereo speakers on the iPad Mini with Retina display. But in the end, this is a much better tablet than the Tab 3 7-inch from last year. So if the prices come down to match where that went, then I definitely think this is one to consider for a lot of people. So that's going to do it for me in this video. I will be covering the Tab 8.0 and 10.1 soon, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you again in the next video.
Alright guys, so here I am in my foyer, once again with Zoe and Chloe. Chloe's on the right here. So I'm using the rear-facing camera, which is 3.15 megapixels. So it's a pretty mediocre camera. Good for 720p HD video. I do not have tap to focus, but I can zoom in while recording. I also do not have tap to change the exposure. It just does it automatically. Of course, no stabilization or any features like that. And again, it's recording in 720p, so that means I'm going to be upscaling it to 1080p for this video, so that may confuse a few people here. But let's go ahead and check out the performance of the camera outdoors.